Hey, everybody, happy Monday. All right, I have a feeling this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal. I'm going to go over a ton of different stuff. I'm also going to start kind of a new segment, and it's going to be related to this man here that you see. We share the same first name, and a great one that it is. This guy's name is Gregory Mannarino. He runs traderschoice.net. And like my title says, I'm calling him out, but I'm not doing it in a negative sense. I'm doing it in a positive way. And the reason I wanted to talk about him today, I get all kinds of questions from people all the time about how'd you learn this stuff? Where did you learn it? Who did you learn it from? Like, I don't see it on TV. I don't understand how you know this stuff. Well, I am going to, and I don't know how often I'm going to do this, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, but I'll go over books or people much like Gregory Mannarino that have influenced me in a positive way. And that way you guys, if you want to search out other information, you can do it as well. So I have been following Mr. Mannarino since he was like sub 10,000 on his YouTube channel. It might have been right around 10, but I've watched him basically 10x. He's got close to 100,000 subscribers. I first heard about him on Greg Hunter, and that's one of the reasons. And if you're unfamiliar with Greg Hunter, I think he has one of the best YouTube channels out there, at least that he did. And what's one of the reasons I want to talk about Mr. Mannarino. So why do I like Greg Mannarino? So first of all, one of the ways I believe you get ahead in life is to emulate or, try to surround yourself with people that have already kind of gotten to a level that you would like to get to. So I would love for this channel to get up to 100,000, and I think he does a fantastic job of breaking down complex ideas. He bills himself as, and it's probably true, he calls the Fed better than just about anybody, and he's really good at following the bond market. He talks about it a lot. If you don't know anything about bonds, go listen to his channel. He talks about it like at least once a week. And now, granted, we trade very differently. I don't think he uses technicals, at least from the videos that he's put out there. He day trades, at least that's what he's doing now. I don't do it that much. But one of the reasons I wanted to really talk about him today, I watched his channel kind of stagnate, I think, or kind of get stuck around like somewhere between like the 30 to 50,000 subscriber mark, and it really doubled for him, I think, when he started to become his true self. So when I first started listening to him, I felt like he was always holding back a little bit because I had the mindset, like you guys know, you follow me, I think a lot of the stuff we hear is misdirection. I don't want to call it an outright lie, but I don't believe that we're being told the whole truth all the time. And his channel, I think, stagnated around there. And just, I would say in the last year or so, he has really just, I think he's just talking from the heart. And when you do that, people are more apt to listen and follow you. And like I mentioned before, I found him on Greg Hunter, and I couldn't wait for Greg Hunter to put out a new episode. And I have noticed myself over the last, say, 6 months or so, I don't listen to Greg Hunter as much. I listen to Greg Mannarino more than I do Mr. Hunter. And even today's video, if you didn't watch it, go watch his latest video he put out today. He's kind of calling Hunter out. And I believe that they're friends in real life, but he's calling him out because, and he kind of hints at it. He doesn't say it, but I've seen this from other YouTube channels too, where people become super pro-left or super pro-right, where that wasn't their original stance. And I follow other people that saying the same thing that Mannarino is saying, that Greg Hunter might potentially be paid off by somebody in the Trump camp to constantly praise Donald Trump. And it's hard for me to follow Hunter when he'll have some guest on, someone like myself, where he's talking about the debt and how it's bad. It's not even talking about politics. Like, for me, money trumps, and I don't mean Donald Trump, I just mean, is in charge of politics. Politics and politicians follow money. And he's calling kind of Hunter out on that, and I praise him for that. So if you want to follow somebody that I follow and listen to at least a few times a week, Mr. Greg Mannarino, I tip my hat to you, sir, and thanks for doing what you do. So I don't even know where to start. I have a lot to go over. So Friday, we had that gigantic fall as Trump kind of lost his mind and was tweeting retaliatory stuff. Now, what I found interesting, and I actually sold about a third of my shorts just because, and I mentioned this, I think it was last Wednesday or Thursday. All of this in here is somewhat noise. It's kind of chop inside of a bigger bear flag. Now, what was interesting on Friday, we did not take out these lows. So we got a, it's a put in a low. We got higher low, higher low, higher low, or higher low, excuse me. And that kind of, we were getting to the close there and it started to move up. And notice too how it moved up above my trend line there. I sold a third of my shorts, not at the bottom here, in right when we closed above that trend line. And we did get a gap up today. The futures were down, I think like, the last I checked was like 200-300 points. And then we get a magical tweet, which my brother and I were talking about on Saturday at like 5. No, it wasn't a tweet. It was some news that, yeah, I mean, it's effing ridiculous that they're still floating out the China trade deal BS, which is what caused this down move. And then all of a sudden in the pre-market, they announced that it's all, we're going to have talks with them. And then the market jumps higher and it reversed like 600-700 points. I don't even know what to say to that other than, and I've said this before on the channel, you have to be asleep or really not wanting to see the truth if you don't think markets are, air quotes, managed. Now, I know that they're managed, and that's something if you want to trade, you have to be okay with. That's why I stopped trying to use fundamental. I use fundamental analysis, but that used to be how I traded when I first started, and I stopped doing that because this is none of this since the top and the run up to the top over the last few years has anything to do with fundamentals. None of this lately, up these 700, 800 point swings up and down, has anything to do with fundamentals. Using technicals for me is helping me make money in here. So I sold a third of my shorts. Now I'm still short because this is a bear flag. And like I said, the likelihood this plays out to the downside is much more likely than it going to the upside unless they do QE. Now, all I did here is I created a little trend line connecting all these together. Whenever this breaks, we will flush down probably right into this 280 range. Why? We have a trend line there and the 200. I do believe that we might get a bounce back up here or maybe even higher. Maybe test the low here, but I do believe we are ultimately going to go a little bit lower. I want to show you too now, for those of you guys that, we got a couple more donations, so again, thank you for everybody that did that. I'm going to stop talking about the video that I put out, but using my cycle work, I don't remember if I actually said it in the video, but in the year that for those of you guys that got that video, I believe I said it in the video. That same year, oil collapsed. And in that video, I showed why I think stocks are going to go lower. So when I do that stuff, when I do cycle work, I go back in time and when I'm doing it, I'll set out, this is my cell phone here, I set reminders for myself to watch for certain things. So I woke up this morning and this little announcement here that I set months ago. I said to watch for tomorrow, this being Tuesday, tomorrow, for oil to collapse. So right at the open, I took a position to short oil. Now, I don't trade oil that much. You guys probably don't hear me talk about it that much, mainly because I don't trade it all that well. And if I don't trade something that well, I typically stay away from it. But I shorted right at the open today. I shorted the USO, ticker symbol USO, and I was up about 25%. It just kind of collapsed right down. Now, if I zoom out here, really, I think the last time I was trading oil was, when is this? This is back in back where the peak was in stocks. Or not stocks, but one of the, it was a short-term top, and there you can see I had this trend line here. When that broke down, we had an epic fall here. Now, what's happened since then, that's just too big. You guys know I talk about trying to trade extremes. That's a huge fall, right? And we've since had a huge bounce up. And for any of you guys that are new or just starting to, a couple of you guys emailed saying, hey, thank you for putting out all your technical work. It's so new to me. I don't totally understand it. So what do you guys call this right here? I'll give you a second to figure that out. Big down move and then, a ramp higher here. That is a bear flag, right? Now that's a monthly bear flag. So a lot of people don't have the patience just for something this to play out. But that is a bear flag. Retraced about half of that, which is pretty common, and then we've since had another fall down. Now what it's doing, so all of this here is very negative, right? You put in a bear flag, and we went down, we came back up again. So that's a smaller bear flag inside of a larger bear flag, moved down again, and then moved back up. Now the reason I shorted per my cycle work is telling me that that year that I think we're following, oil collapsed. And then when I was looking at the technicals, it gapped up this morning, hit the 20, and then immediately sold off. And we're below all three moving averages. So basically, I believe this is still a lot of negative energy in here that will ultimately, I think, will come down here and test double bottom. And I really think that this might happen fairly quickly, maybe into October. I'm going to talk about the commitment of traders report too. I want to talk about gold really quickly. Gold put in a kind of a nasty topping stick today. Even again, I use TradingView.com. Even they covered it. Said gold price futures technical analysis close under 1537.60 forms potential bearish closing price reversal top. That's very wordy for just saying that's an ugly topping stick potentially. Now, I said in the other day's video, all it's doing is going sideways, right? Like I use that analogy of Usain Bolt. He sprints 200 meters, 100 meters. He's got to take a break before he jumps into his next race and goes and wins another gold medal. But he did that, right? So it's going sideways here. And I said, if you draw your trend lines in here, let me do that real quick so it makes it a little easier for you guys to see. I'm going to go right from there. Right there. Nah. We'll take the top right here. Whoops. You can see, much like the other breakout, it may go sideways for a while here. And I think that's what it's going to do. So it tried to break out and then came right back down. Now, typically, and not always when you see this, it may hover around the top, but I wouldn't be shocked if we came back in and then tested the low here around 1500. And all that is just chop. This is, because of this move, this is accumulation. Now, if you guys remember me talking about this in the previous videos, a lot of times it takes anywhere from like 3 to 7 weeks for it to digest. So we're really kind of just in the start of the third week. So I'm not surprised at all that that is popped out of there. I wouldn't be shocked if we just go side. And the longer it goes sideways, the higher it's going to go, right? Now, if you take a much longer time frame, look at this chop. I mean, I've sat through all of this, right? This is 6 years of chop. I know going forward, based on technicals and all of my historic research, there is 6 years of pent-up energy in the gold market that will send this thing to new highs. Now, I was talking to a family member who, my brother and I actually got into silver a couple weeks ago. He lives in Canada, and my brother and I were talking about on Saturday about how other countries around the world are setting new highs in gold and silver. He bought some silver at 16, 17 range. It's at like 22 or 23 in Canadian dollars already in a couple weeks. And we're just lagging here because we are the reserve currency. And when people panic, they buy dollars. And when dollars goes up, it puts pressure on gold and silver based in US dollars. But that's why the rest of the world is making record highs in the metal. Let's jump into the commitment of traders report. Super interesting. I haven't touched on this in a little bit because not a whole lot has happened. If you guys are new to the channel, I'm probably going to explain this every single time. But the commercial money here, this is the smart money. This is your, the big institutions. They have been at the top. When I called the top in the SPY right up here, I missed it by 4 points. They were 4-1 short. And now what has happened? They are, for the first time here, they have gone long. So they have almost 14,000 long contracts, and they're short 12,000. So they opened up about 1,500 longs, and then they closed out about 850. And that doesn't mean that the market's going to go straight up, but I think this is why you're seeing a lot of this chop. Okay, so they're starting to sell to the dumb money. Now, if you guys remember what I said weeks ago when we were up here, you'll find a bottom when the dumb money, which is the non-reportables over here, and that's just your average Joe that doesn't really know anything about trading, gets wildly short. So while at the top over here, the smart money was 4-1 long, or short, excuse me, the smart money was 4-1 short, the dumb money was like 2-1 long. Now, what has happened? So the smart money has sold into the decline, like you should, and then the dumb money has gotten really short. So they were buying. This happens all the time. This is why I like the commitment of traders report. Down here, they were wickedly short the dumb money, and then up here they were 2-to-1 long. Right now they're starting to get let's see what is it here. They're even, but they closed 200 longs and they added 10 times the amount of shorts. So I still think we're going to go lower, but I don't think we're going to go like crazy low, just because the commitment of traders report is starting to turn. So I don't know where we'll end up. I'm not sure that we'll get into this huge gap here. I kind of feel like this might be the last line in the sand here at 259. Potentially somewhere in here is a decent air pocket in here. But we do have support at the 200 and a trend line here. I do think that we'll probably at very least test 280. I'll be pretty shocked if we don't. And again, too, today, we had a huge volume the other day because trade war were off. And then we maybe or maybe not had our country is telling us that the trade talks are back on, which were violently opposed by the Chinese. And they said, there's no talks, and volume was really low compared to the other day, and then we went up. And if you've been following me at all, almost every day that we have low volume, what happens? The stock market goes up. Why does that happen? That allows the big boys to sell more of their shorts, basically to the dumb money, which is now just eating right out of their hand like they always do. Let's see. Now, I have a ton of other stuff I wanted to cover here. I don't even know where I should go next. I was actually listening to Greg Mannarino. He doesn't really talk. He talks about U.S. bonds a lot, but I was just happened to look at other countries' bonds, and I really hadn't done this in a while. But so you can complain about U.S. bonds inverting and being, like I think the 10-year is like 5.5 or 1.5%, like 1.5%. But go look at like the U.K. Look at this. Their 2-year is 0.4. And if you're not familiar with bonds, their 30-year is 1%. That means you would loan the UK English government money for 30 years, and they would give you 1% back. I mean, that's terrible. Look at the 10-year, right? It's 0.5%. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And I mean, think of it this way. It would be like if I just went around town and asked 100 people to all give me $10,000 each, and then I guaranteed them that I would give them, $9,000 back. No one would give me that. Why would anyone do that? But that's essentially what you have going on when you take into consideration inflation is higher than their yields. So if real inflation is running at, say, 5, 6, 7, 8%, it's hard to tell. They're going to pay you 0.5%. Let's call it the low end. Let's say it's 5%. That means you're guaranteeing yourself a 4.5% loss if you loan the money to the government for 10 years. I'd be 50. I'd be locking in a loss till I'm 50. Why would you do that? Then you go down here, and this doesn't, I mean, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say to this. The government, it's negative rates, right? I mean, people are talking about that. People are talking about the U.S. doing this. This is literal insanity. I've talked about this one or two other times, and it's akin to waking up in the morning, rolling out of bed because your alarm clock is going off, and then all of a sudden you go to take a step on the floor and you float to the ceiling because gravity no longer works. Like, that's literally what our markets have become. They're so out of whack. It's akin to just gravity no longer working. None of this makes sense, and it's about as broken as it's probably ever been in human history, at least per my studies. Let's see here. A couple other things I wanted to cover. This one is from Zero Hedge, and they do some good charting work every once in a while. And their source was Bloomberg from Morgan Stanley, and they were just talking about secular growth stocks relative to defensive stocks. And you can see here too, one of the last times we had a big pullback here. The reason I wanted to show you guys this, there's a lot of symmetry in markets. And this fell, if you were to take a ruler here, like the size of this arrow, and put it to here, these are slightly bigger, but that's because the problem is slightly larger. You can see the fall, he's saying growth, recession scare, get a big fall, and then, pops back up, always recovers. But we had a little bit bigger fall because the debt from 2015 to 2018 is much, much larger. And what's interesting here, this one came down and then we went up and made a new high. This one came down roughly the size of this dip, a little bit bigger, but our bounce higher has been much less. It did not go up and make a new high. So I do think we are going to have a decent sized pullback. That's why I think we're going to get to that like 259, at least on the SPY. The other one I wanted to look at really quickly, I thought this was interesting too. So it's this again from Zero Hedge, and it says Google search interest for recession. Look at that. And I have noticed in my personal life, and I've said this to my brother a couple times, I'm on Facebook. I hate Facebook, by the way, but every once in a while I post a lot of financial stuff, and nobody gives a crap because they're posting about their food and stuff. Or the Andrew Luck, I guess, retired, a quarterback. Which, if I can go off topic for a second, I follow this stuff, and I think this stuff impacts potentially millions of people, and it's very interesting or unusual to me that a quarterback, he's not even the best, can become the topic of conversation because the guy's made millions of dollars and he's opted to retire. And to me, that just makes a lot of sense. Like, he's retiring basically in his prime. He's made millions of dollars. He would like to walk when he's 60. Like, I go to get my MRI tonight. I might have broken my back. It would be nice to know personally that I'm going to be able to recover from this. If you're a quarterback and you've already made millions and you want to be able to be healthy and mobile for your own family when you're 60, why is it weird that the guy wants to retire? Why is that even a topic of conversation? Good for that guy, right? He's like a prize fighter. He's like Conor McGregor, if you guys follow UFC. He always talked about you got to get in, get out before you get hurt and make your money. It's exactly what McGregor did. It's what Andrew Luck did. So weird. But anyway, so I post on Facebook. People are posting about Andrew or Luck, whatever. I don't know, is that his name? I don't even know his first name. I don't even follow sports anymore. But anyway, so when I post financial stuff, when I was posting it back like here, 2014, 2016, people would just make fun of me. Like, I think I've showed you that guy, the picture. Maybe I haven't. I had a friend actually come to my gym one day. He'd made a tinfoil hat at home and wore it into the gym, literally just to make fun of me. Now, I know he's in almost all paper products. His wife actually got into some silver listening to me, just kind of went behind his back, which I think pissed him off because she's listening to me instead of him. But I make more sense than he does, I think, which is why he decided to wear a tinfoil hat into the gym. But what's interesting, when I post financial stuff now, I get silence or I get private messages from people saying, you know what, I think what you're saying is correct. And then look at that, right? So now you got the general populace waking up, which, again, would make sense with them, of course, being a little bit behind the curve, but now they're starting to get short as markets are coming down. So let's see, is there anything else I wanted to cover? Is that all of it? I had so many pictures I took here. I think that's it. So I'll end again. If you guys have never checked out Greg Mannarino, go check out his channel. I'll link it in the description box. And have a great Monday, guys. And I'll hopefully have some good news about my MRI and my back. See ya.